This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin with me, Mike Wickett. All right, so we are halfway through, and by the way, thanks for checking out the podcast, Wickett on Wisconsin. There's been a lot of Packers stuff on the podcast, and for reasons obvious, there isn't an NBA season. We're getting into the NBA offseason. The Brewers flamed out in the playoffs real quick, and let's be honest, man, it's tough to get excited about Big Ten football and the Badgers right now. I mean, it was easy after week one when Graham Mertz went wild, and then it was tougher after that because of COVID, shutting Wisconsin down. And I saw somebody say that this is the least excited that they have been for the Packers season. They're just not into it. And I get everybody's free to have their own prerogative. And I understand what some people would say because the fans aren't there. The energy may not be there. It does feel a little bit different. Personally, I have never been more into an NFL season. And perhaps it's because my career changed, and now all I really have is football. I mean, I stay home with my children. That is my job right now. And then I produce this podcast and another podcast, and I love the fact that the NFL gives me a bit of a break from my daily routine. Like I was in 3 fantasy leagues. I'm now in 2. I've been eliminated in 1. I'm just glued to fantasy football. I'm glued to the Packers. I absolutely love when Red Zone is on. I will say, getting back to Wisconsin football in the Big Ten, I'm just not quite as into college football as I usually am this time of year. And I think a lot of it is COVID related. I mean, I'm a Big Ten guy. I grew up in the Midwest, covered the Wisconsin Badgers for a radio station in Milwaukee for a long time. Fan of UW, fan of the Big Ten. But to be 100% honest, because of COVID taking games away and all of this, and there no being 0 fans, and maybe more so with college than the NFL, the fans bring the pageantry. The fans bring the tradition. The fans at, a whiteout game at Penn State, for example, or, some of these crazy fans at Buckeye Stadium, or jump around at Camp Randall. Like, that's what college football really, really has that the NFL doesn't. It's pageantry, it's history with fans, and that college stadium, that college. You always hear that. They're like, hey, you ever go to that game? It's got a real college feel to it. Well, college games don't have a college feel to it. And the product on Sundays is so superior to the product on Saturdays that it's noticeable that no fans, no pageantry, no tradition, and the play doesn't compare to Sundays. I mean, they're professionals versus collegiate players. That it's just a little more difficult for me to get into the college game this year because the fans are not there. And you know what? It's also tough because the Big Ten hasn't been there. I mean, we got the first couple of weeks with just the Big 12 and the ACC, then the SEC joined up. And then here comes the Big Ten, and they've already had to cancel some games, including the Wisconsin-Illinois game. And I know as I'm recording this, Ohio State-Maryland is canceled for this weekend. I don't know anybody outside of Columbus or Maryland that is excited about or that is disappointed about that one. But maybe if you're a bettor, you are. So I have been so locked in on the National Football League and fantasy football, and most importantly, the Green Bay Packers, more so now than any other year. And maybe it's COVID-related. Maybe it's because my career changed. Maybe I just don't know. But I have been loving this National Football League season. And we're at the halfway point, and the Green Bay Packers are 6-2. They're 6-2. They're right there. They're in a good spot for the driver's seat to get that number 1 seed. I mean, they're tied with the Seahawks and Saints right now. Well, they got a tiebreaker over the Saints. They beat them. And there's a long way to go for your Green Bay Packers, and their schedule looks mighty nice the rest of the way out, sitting at 6-2. And remember, unless COVID changes the rules right now, the only team that gets a bye is the 1 seed. And Green Bay at 6-2 with a very manageable schedule. I went over the whole thing a little bit in the last podcast, but they have a very manageable schedule the rest of the way out. These back 8, Jacksonville, at Indy, Chicago, Philly, at Detroit, Carolina, Tennessee, at Chicago. You can see Detroit, so you can see a win against Detroit, against Chicago, both times against Chicago. Maybe they split. Who knows? It is a division rival. We know what happened the last time they played a division rival. Jacksonville, they should have no trouble with, but we'll see. They go to Indy. Indy could be a little difficult. They got a real good defense down there, but they can't score like Green Bay can. So can Green Bay get to 35? I don't think Indy can do it. What I'm saying is this schedule for the Packers looks real manageable. I mean, 12-4 is not crazy to say, sitting at 6-2 right now. I mean, are there 2 losses on there? I mean, it's the NFL. Anybody can beat anybody. Are there 3 losses on there? I don't really see 3 losses. It wouldn't surprise me if they went 7-1, if they went 5-3, somewhere in there. And they're sitting at where I predicted them at 12-4. And, here we are at 6-2. It's been a very interesting beginning of the year. And when you're trying to, as a fan, like I do, you sit there and you try to determine where does Green Bay fall in the pantheon of the NFC. We'll worry about the AFC later. But in the pantheon of the NFC, if you are ranking these teams, I think there are 4 teams right now, as we're midway through the season on November the 12th. There's 4 teams that you could say, give me those 4, you take the field, right? Maybe? It's Green Bay, it's Tampa Bay. I have to put Seattle there, and probably New Orleans. I don't feel good about a couple of those. But Tampa, other than getting spanked by the New Orleans Saints a couple of nights ago, kind of was rising as the cream of the NFC. Green Bay was 4-0. They got spanked by Tampa Bay. And they got brought back down to earth, especially after Dalvin Cook ran all over them. New Orleans, what do you make of New Orleans? Drew Brees can't throw the ball 60 yards down the field, but does he have the ability to throw the ball 25 yards down the field? And they're getting healthier. They added back Michael Thomas. But Green Bay beat New Orleans. And New Orleans beat Tampa twice. And Tampa beat Green Bay. So who's the best team in the NFC? Is it Seattle? Seattle has 0 defense. You think Green Bay's defense is bad? Seattle's defense is on pace to give up the most yards in the history of the National Football League. That record was set by your 2011 Green Bay Packers. You might remember that 2011 Green Bay Packers team. They started out 13-0. Aaron Rodgers set the NFL all-time quarterback rating record. And I think he threw, 45 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They lost 1 game that year. It was to Kansas City. I think Tamba Hali had 26 sacks or something along those lines. And they got bounced in the playoffs because they had no answer for Eli Manning and the Giants. Remember there was a Hail Mary at halftime at Lambeau Field, and the Packers got bounced because they don't play any defense. And that's where I do want to get to some of this midseason grading stuff. You always like to hand out midseason grades, and I asked you on Twitter. I said, hey, give me your midseason grades for who gets an A, who gets a B, who gets a whatever. I want to read yours during the podcast, and we'll get to that in a second. The A's, listen, I'm not going to run through every player. I'm not going to run through every letter. I'll give you my A's because these are the guys that are doing great. These are the guys that are most entertaining. I mean, I watch football for enjoyment. I watch football for entertainment. I watch football because watching football is fun. Mina Kimes said on the Pat McAfee podcast about NFL Live and how when people clap at her, she likes to clap back and, all the haters and whatnot. Watching football is supposed to be fun. And these are the guys that get A's because these are the guys that I've really enjoyed watching play this year. My A's go to the following 4 players on the Green Bay Packers. I'm giving an A, of course, to Aaron Rodgers. I'm giving an A, of course, to Devontae Adams. I'm giving an A, of course, to Aaron Jones. And I give an A to Jair Alexander. End of list. That's it. Of all the players, that's the end of my list. I'm not even going to give an A to Matt LaFleur, who I'm a very big fan of, especially this year, because the games they have lost, he's had no ability to make any kind of an adjustment, at least offensively. So I'm not going to give him an A. But how do you not give Aaron Rodgers an A? I'm going to read you a write-up from Pro Football Focus, one of my favorite nerdiest sites out there. They have Aaron Rodgers as the number one quarterback in the National Football League. And here's their write-up on Rodgers. We could have gone a number of different directions at quarterback, but in the end, we decided to jump aboard the Aaron Rodgers revenge tour. Rodgers is the highest-graded quarterback in the National Football League through 9 weeks, despite an ugly performance against Tampa Bay in Week 5. He has 23 big-time throws, second only to Russell Wilson, and has offset those with just 4 turnover-worthy plays all season. You could make a strong case for Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes or even Tom Brady, despite his most recent disaster. But Aaron Rodgers' numbers are too good to ignore. Now, those are the guys that go in and what's a turnover-worthy throw, what's a big-time throw. Like, those guys get into the nerdy, nitty-gritty stuff of every single play and the intricacies of every single play. And they give Aaron Rodgers the highest grade in the National Football League. Davante Adams obviously gets an A. They're right up on Davante. Davante Adams has arguably been the best route runner in the game for a number of years, but this season, he may just be the best receiver, period. Despite missing time, Adams still has 675 yards and 8 touchdowns, averaging 3.2 yards per route run and generating a 135.8 passer rating for Aaron Rodgers when targeted. He is the league's highest-graded receiver through the first 9 weeks and could push that figure even higher if he has a healthy second half of the year. We kind of talked about this last week on the podcast, whether or not Davante Adams is the best receiver in football. And over the last 3 or 4 years, he has proven to be, productivity-wise, the best receiver in football. So it doesn't really surprise me that Davante this year is grading out with the nerdiest of the nerds as the best receiver in football. There's nothing he doesn't do great, all right? He's a great short route runner. Intermediate route runner, deep balls. He can break away from you. Best hands on the team. Maybe the best hands in the National Football League. Think back to his rookie year. Think back to Davante Adams' rookie year and probably his second year when the biggest problem for a wide receiver, if you can't catch the ball, you can't play in the National Football League. And Davante Adams couldn't catch the ball his first and second year, which was crazy because he had skyrocketing crazy numbers when he was in college. And now you look at him after working, figuring it out, he might just be the best wide receiver in football, and Pro Football Focus says so. They, by the way, add another Packer onto this list, and I'm not going to tell you that I have graded Corey Linsley the way that they do, but the Packers center boasts one of the best pass-blocking units, or the middle part, the anchor of one of the best pass-blocking units in all of football, and Linsley is a major part of the middle. He's allowed just one hurry across the first half of the season and has a Pro Football Focus run-blocking grade just below 90. He is one of the very few players who have a Pro Football Focus grade of at least 85 as both a run blocker and a pass protector this year at a position along the offensive line. I am not going to tell you I know anything about offensive line play. It's hard to focus in on specific offensive linemen. It's just not as fun. But those guys do it, and they've got Corey Linsley on the list as well, and I'm cool with that. I'm absolutely cool with that. I've got Aaron Jones on my list. They do not. They do have Jair Alexander. They have written up about Jair. Jair Alexander has been the best cover corner in football through Week 9. I'll say that again. Jair Alexander has been the best cover corner in football through Week 9. He threatened to become that player a year ago, but lapsed into some rough games. This season, this is crazy. This season, he opened against Minnesota by allowing 66 receiving yards, but in the 7 games since, he has allowed 75 combined. That's craziness. Alexander has surrendered just 16 receptions in 8 games to go along with a pick and 3 pass breakups. Jair Alexander is a stud. Pretty sure you already knew that, but, got to make sure. Got to make sure. And I would throw Aaron Jones into this A-minus list. I know he got banged up and missed a game, 2.5 games, but the dude is averaging 5 yards a carry. He's got 5 touchdowns in 6 games, 447 yards on the ground. He also, by the way, has, 23 catches for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. I think Aaron Jones is proving that and I'm not a fan of paying running backs huge money, But Aaron Jones, wants that big contract, and he is having the year to say, you should consider me amongst the McCaffreys and the Kamaras and Zeke Elliott's and these running backs that are getting Dalvin Cook, these guys that are getting crazy money. Now, again, I'm not a guy that thinks you should pay a running back that kind of coin because of the nature of the position and the longevity of the position. I don't know if they're going to pay Aaron Jones. I assume they will because A.J. Dillon sure doesn't look like the second coming of anything yet. And Jamal Williams is a guy. He's a good running back, but he's not a feature running back. So, again, my A's go to Rodgers, Devontae, Aaron Jones, and Jair Alexander. I could run through the B's and the C's and the D's and all that. The F's, Mike Pettin, man. Mike Pettin. I don't know, and I could pick out different guys. My most disappointing player I'll get to that in a second, but my F goes to Mike Pettin. I mean, there are no adjustments being made. The drop 8, rush 3 inside the red zone against Tom Brady, the having guys play 9 yards off the ball on 3rd and 4, the scheme to not blitz, the scheme to not pack the box and make Kirk Cousins try to beat you, like everything Mike Pettin has done. And I don't want to say I'm a Mike Pettin apologist, but I thought we were going to, and I was hoping we would see some improvement from last year to this year, and especially from the Dom Capers era to this year. And good gracious, you got some talent on every level in that defense, and they're doing nothing with it. Everybody knows how to beat Green Bay. It's run up the middle. And I don't know if Jacksonville has got a rookie quarterback starting. You know what they're going to probably do? Put the ball in James Robinson's hands, their rookie running back who is on pace to have one of the great seasons an undrafted rookie has ever had. And he's great. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He's built like a fire hydrant. He busts up the middle, and they're going to do to Green Bay what everybody else has done. Why wouldn't you try to make this rookie quarterback beat you? They didn't do it with Kirk Cousins on a windy day against Minnesota, which still blows my mind, but I would give Mike Pettin an absolute F. Guys that are disappointing this year, Preston Smith, where are you? Where is Preston Smith? I don't know if I give him an F. I don't know if I give him an incomplete, but Preston Smith gets the lowest grade I can possibly give somebody, I guess. Maybe I do give him an F. But he's been tremendously disappointing. Zadarius Smith, up and down season. I expected more out of Z on a consistent basis. Rashawn Gary, I think people were hyping him up. C, haven't seen enough, hasn't done enough, hasn't made enough impact plays. There's just, I could run through everybody on the roster, but I think that would just be kind of boring. More importantly, though, I do want to read some of the grades that you have, all right? So I threw this out on Twitter, and you can follow me at Mike Wickett. And I said, I need your help, Packers fans. I want to know after 8 games who gets an A, who gets a B, who gets an F. I want to read your tweets. So this is from Senor Pez, who writes, with some exceptions, MVS, the offense has been a solid B+. The offensive line play has been exceptional in comparison to expectations. I'd say that's probably fair, and we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with the injury to David Bakhtiari, how serious that affects Bach the rest of the year. Defense is a D. It's hard to consider how bad they'd be if they didn't play more good teams or didn't have Big Z. You only play who's on your schedule. Nobody's playing the Chiefs 6 times a year, so I think every team is kind of trying to figure that out right now. Let's see here. Dylan Rains 8 says, Wildman Wickett, been a huge fan since Chuck and Wickett began. I would even love to call in and give you my analysis, but it's not possible, so here's what I got so far. I think you have to give an A to LaFleur for play calling. I disagree. I think you give him a B. Rodgers, you give an A to his 24-2 ratio. Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. A, B to Williams and Jair and Runyon. I don't know if you mean Runyon or Tonyan, but it's spelled Ronyan. If you mean Robert Tonyan, I think that guy has performed way above expectation. If you mean John Runyon, who has stepped in and played on the offensive line well due to injury, I don't know enough about offensive line play to tell you if they've done great or if they've done poorly. So I'm going to assume you mean Tunyon because he's a tight end. He's had the 3-touchdown game against, the Falcons. And I would say that Big Bob has been a very big bright spot for this squad. I think Crosby deserves a B-, C+, along with Lazard. Man, if he would have graded Lazard before he had the core muscle surgery, you would have given Alan Lazard an A. I mean, what else do you expect? What else were you expecting from that guy? He stepped up big. I think that Lazard has been fantastic. Just couldn't stay healthy. Now our defense gets a D+. They still cannot close the gap and stop the run. Completely a D. I mean, he says a D+. I'd completely agree. I'd probably give him less than a D+. This is from Drummer 1. Jerry writes, A to Rodgers, Adams, Jones, and Crosby. C to the Smith brothers. A to Jair. B to Tunyon. And the D-line gets a D. This is from Tim. It says B because as great as the offense looks, no one at this time can give the defense a grade better than what's missing from my spelling, and that is a D. I'd probably agree with you there. They're TJ Costanza on Twitter. Let's see here. Matthew writes, A, Rodgers, Jones, Jair, and Devontae. F, Gutekunst. Feels like a lot of the roster has been so inconsistent week to week, it's hard to give them a grade for the season. I just dislike the draft class. There are impact rookies all over the NFL, and our first-round pick isn't active for game days. I'm not getting into the Jordan Love talk. Brendan says, A to Rodgers, Jair, Devontae, Aaron Jones, the offensive line, and Matt LaFleur's play calling. A B to Lazard, and Za'Darius, and Bob Tunyon. C, tackling. Oh, how many tackles did they miss on that one screenplay to Dalvin Cook alone, or the Kamara play on the sideline? Tackling. You give him a C, Brendan? I might not even go that high. Preston Smith and the trade deadline get D's. Mike Pettin gets an F, and MVS gets an E. He says, yes, I went below an F. See, here's the problem with MVS. He has the 2-touchdown game against San Francisco, and you think maybe, just maybe, it can be a time when MVS can become a thing. And then watch, against Jacksonville, he'll have 2 drops or something over the middle that's just going to piss you off, and you're like, God, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. And Simply Evan gets the final tweet in, and thank you to everybody who sent in your tweets. I appreciate it. Simply Evan writes, guys named Aaron, Rodgers, and Jones get A's. B's, the number 2 stepping up, like Jamal Williams and Alan Lazard. Also a B for Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays. I think that's on Pat McAfee's show. D, the pass rush. Yeah, I can't argue that. I really can't argue that. And F, seeing Lambeau empty due to COVID-19. Yeah, I know. And I don't think it's going to get any better. It sounds like things in Wisconsin are not all over the state, not doing so hot in the state of Wisconsin. So there you go. I mean, we hit on a lot of football. We hit on a lot of the Packers. I'd love to know what you think. Give me your comments in either on the Facebook page, on Twitter. I'd love for you to review and rate the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, wherever you're getting this right now, so I can grow the podcast. So that is it. I will have another Packers instant reaction against after the game against Jacksonville coming up on Sunday. And then I have a very cool guest, one of those you have to write to get approval for, coming up next week on the podcast. So please tell a friend, especially if they're a Wisconsin sports fan, if they're a fan of the Packers, the Bucks, or the Brewers. Of course, the Wisconsin Badgers, MU, whomever. We'll get into some college basketball as well later on down the road because can you believe it is almost already college basketball season. Packers and Jags coming up next. That's your next one. And again, we'll have that instant reaction on Sunday afterwards. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching on the video if you are. Don't forget you can subscribe to my YouTube channel where I put up all of these videos, including my very special guest will join me via Zoom for next week's podcast as well. Till then, I'm Mike Wickett. Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. Until next time, go Pack, go Bucks, and go Brewers. Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. If you have any feedback or you want to reach out to the show, you can find me on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can email MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter @Mike Wickett. Thanks to Silverman Sound Studios for providing the music for today's show. And you can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin.